instead of looking where they are going, they are just looking down. And this happens everywhere. I use a commuter train every day to work. Unlike the olden days, I used to see people's faces, but I don't. Everyone's just looking down. So what is it they are looking at? A portable device, and this thing has content. So we are all here, all united because of this content in those devices. So the question is, what is that content? Where is it hosted? How is it stored? Who is hosting it? And now we have the buzz name CDN. Okay, to answer all those questions, I've got a whole list of experts here in the field who are going to talk about the content distribution challenges in Africa, and in particular this part of the world, Western Africa. So I will let these guys introduce themselves. I have Nina from Netflix, Martin from Cloudflare, Andrew, and Jillian. So I'll let them introduce themselves first, then they can come off the slides. Yeah, you can just introduce yourself. Just your name so that they get to know you.
Hi. Is that good? Yes, there it is. I am Nina Bargisen. I work as a partner engagement manager for Netflix, which basically means that I handle our peering and our service solution for partners in the immediate region. And specifically, Sub-Saharan Africa is what I'm responsible for.
Thank you.
Well, yes, good afternoon. My name is Martin Levy. I spoke yesterday, well, about my favorite subject, IPv6. But today I sort of put my work hat on of doing network strategy, and this is what keeps me busy at Cloudflare is understanding how to improve our infrastructure and how to move bits around the globe. So I'm looking forward to this panel. It'll be good.
Thank you. Andrew?
Hi, I'm Andrew. I work at Facebook, and I help get the cap pictures from the data centers to your phone. And specifically, I focus on the Middle East and Africa, and really looking forward to speaking on the panel and hearing about your experiences and getting questions.
Ben?
Good afternoon, Gila Giramuga from Rwanda. I am from Rwanda ICT Association. We run the Rwanda Internet Exchange Point. But as well, we have some other initiatives around content development, locally developed content. So that will be the focus of the discussion this afternoon.
Some statistic from Africa and Middle East says that the CDN market will grow from 0.18 billion in 2013 to about 0.45 billion in 2019. So what is bringing this growth? Also now would want to understand what is in that content, how does it all work? So Nina is going to give us a short introduction about how she sees it and how what is it, what a CDN is, and how Netflix does it as well.
Hello, yes. So it's meant as a brief introduction in particular to Netflix and our CDN. And I'm curious about the remark about the anticipated growth in the CDN market. And I just want to assure all of you that we're not the driver of that because we run our own CDN. So we will not be part of that market. Anyways, just a quick wrap up. Netflix, we're a global video streaming services. We have around 104 million members today, and we're active in more than 190 countries around the globe. And we stream around 125 million hours of TV shows and movies every day. So we do have a couple of bits that we move around. We do that with our own content distribution network. We decided a couple of years ago that it would be better for us to build a specialized content distribution network to handle Netflix traffic alone, so we could optimize it in particular into what our service is and the data that we have about the service that we are delivering. So what is a content distribution network? Content delivery network, well, it is basically just a bunch of servers sitting all around, and then a way of directing the users to the nearest or best performing server for that particular user. We call our content distribution network Open Connect. And as I said, it is custom built. We are building the hardware ourselves, we are writing the software ourselves, and we're producing and running and operating it ourselves. Here's a picture of the most popular server that we have in Africa. It is our smallest model, just a 1U model, and we can use that to serve around 8 gigs of traffic in a particular market. What we do is, and what is part of my job, is to decide where would be the best place to place these servers. And we do that in 2 ways. We place them within ISPs. So we go out and we talk to an ISP, just as some of those in this room, and we say, hey, we see this, we have Netflix traffic going to your network. Would you like to have some of our servers and put them in your network where it suits you to have the source of this amount of traffic? Another way, which is also the more traditional way, is that we go to a data center. From our point of view, always a neutral data center. And then we build a point of presence. We have our own ASN 2906. Some of you may see that I mentioned that in the peering personals. So we have our network gear there. We have a bunch of servers, and we use that site for interconnections to ISPs and carriers and whatever we need to do. So those are the 2 ways that we connect to ISPs to get the movies from the servers and into the end user that is watching the movie. Here's a map. The green dots are ISP solutions. So in all of these green dots in this on this map, we have 1 or more servers embedded into an ISP's network. The orange dots are the point of presence where our ASN 2906 is present. If we look at Africa, you can see that we have 1 location with our own ASN presence, which is in Johannesburg. And then we are on the journey of spreading green dots all over the continent. And there are much more green dots on the maps this year than when I presented this map at AFPIF last year, and I'm very happy to see that, and I can also say there are more in the coming, but still not without challenges. One of the things that was the driver behind us deciding to build our own CDN is that we have a very good very good ability to predict what content is needed to be on the server. Today, what do we expect people is going to watch? We do that because we're data collecting, so we're collecting data from every time anyone is watching anything. We're collecting the data. What did they watch? Did they like it? Did they not like it? How long did they watch? What format did they watch on? What devices? And we're using all that data to calculate, wow, in this region, these movies will be popular tomorrow. So we want to make sure that we can have those movies present. So the way we push content to the servers is that we use these data, and then we say this server needs to have these movies present, and then we push that data out to them during the low traffic hours where the servers are not busy being used. That is typical during the night, which also happens to be the time where the ISP's networks are not that busy, and there will usually be a lot of free capacity sitting that is usually used during peak hours in the day or in the evening for a typical access network ISP. So if we take a typical server, this would be the traffic profile. The graph is having the user data is the above the line, the positive graph. Oh, on the positive side of the scale. So for this one, it would be there's a peak of around 4 gigabits, I think. And then below the line in the gray area, that is the fill window, as we call it. So that's a 12-hour where we push the content to the server. So this is a healthy server with a great balance between what we're filling into the server and what the server is actually serving. But one of the challenges we have in regions like West Africa, where the demand may not be as high as it is in other areas of the world, we see a profile that looks more like this. The demand is only a couple of hundred of megs during peak hour. So again, it's a nice, whatever you call that curve, I can't remember. But the fill traffic is still going to be the same amount of data that we have to send to the server to keep it updated. So basically, in this situation, we are sending much more data to the server than it's serving, but we need to do that in order to keep it efficient. And yeah, that was my introduction to Netflix and our content distribution network and some of the challenges we see.
Cool. Thank you very much. Now I invite Martin to give us an introduction as well.
I think there's one slide coming up. I have a very similar story, but one massive difference between a content delivery network that is run by somebody like Netflix and what Cloudflare runs on our network. And that difference is we have less predictability, far less. When you're taking many, many websites, millions upon millions of websites of varying types around the world, and because content has become far more dynamic, which is not the case in the movie business, you end up with a very different cache fill diagram, bandwidth diagram. It is a ratio of the outbound to the inbound at that point. And the content bandwidth becomes the easy part of the calculation, getting it to an internet exchange point or getting it into a network. It is the content fill that becomes far more of a problem. So on this map, this is the classic network diagram which you have seen. It's on our website. You'll see sort of every presentation with some form of network map. But on this network map, I don't really differentiate the way that Netflix differentiated between a content delivery network data center that is built into somebody's network versus one that's built into an internet exchange. So take the dot in Cape Town and Johannesburg. They're in data centers. They connect to the local peering points. They have transit providers, and they deliver to as many people as we can peer with. Same goes for other regions around the world or other dots. But then there's that other type. If I look at the dots in some regions, and every one of those dots is documented in some way or other on our blog. If I look at the dots in the Middle East, and I pick 4 of them there, which are in places like Kuwait or Doha or Dubai or Oman, they're all built into an individual network. They serve only that network. In some of those countries, they may be the incumbent or the dominant player. But the cache fill in that environment is part of the equation. We can go and say, for every 1 bit coming in, we can ship many bits out, and we can make an economic argument to deploy our content delivery network. Now, the dots in Europe and North America, and now in Latin America as well, are definitely commodity-priced cache fill. We can go into major cities with major internet exchange points like Amsterdam or Frankfurt or Hong Kong or London or Los Angeles or New York, and we can buy transit at a very economical amount and fill the cache without a problem. The challenge I have here in Africa is a near obvious one. Filling the cache is very expensive. And we've heard already over the last day and a half of various techniques to try and resolve that. If there's one thing that comes out of me talking here and simply explaining my needs and my challenges, is to understand that to bring content closer and to make the content more responsive, we have to work. We have to work out how to make the cache fill more cost-effective or shared amongst the ISPs that are at exchange points, which we heard about already today. But then there's sort of really one last thing that I need to explain about a content delivery network like ours. The name Cloudflare never shows up anywhere because we move content for other players. They could be banks, they could be government websites, they could be trivial websites, they could be music websites, they could be anything. And that breadth means that we actually have a little bit more of a challenge. No one argues that they know who Google is, or Facebook, or Yahoo, or Netflix, because that is in fact what the customer, what the consumer goes to. But in our case, that may not be exactly what happens. I just looked at some stats over lunchtime today, and of the top 10 Alexa websites in Nigeria, well, the top website is Google, and I don't think anybody would argue with that. And then there's YouTube, and there's Facebook, and there's Yahoo, and no one argues about that either. And then you end up with a shopping website that actually operates on our infrastructure, and then a news website, and then another news website. And in fact, out of the top 10 sites in Nigeria, 4 of them, and I'll admit it, the bottom 4 of the top 10, are sitting on our infrastructure. So there's a need, a demand on our side and hopefully on the operator side to work out how to deploy a content delivery network. And that really is an example of the beginning conversation when we look at adding additional dots to the map. And I can repeat that conversation for other places around the globe. I think we run the top pizza delivery website in Kazakhstan. Don't knock it. There's obviously a business. I know nothing more about that than what I just told you. So this is my introduction. I hope that we garner some questions afterwards. But I think that sort of sums up my challenges, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin. With Andrew now, just to give a brief introduction.
Okay, sure. Great, so thanks for going ahead of me. I think that Facebook's challenges are a mix of Netflix and Cloudflare in the sense that we have a lot of this static content like videos and pictures that are relatively easy to cache. Everyone wants to watch the same video. Everyone's looking at the same live stream right now, right? But we also have this challenge of this long tail of dynamic content, like Martin's challenge. Your newsfeed looks different than your friend's newsfeed. Or maybe you don't use Facebook, you use Instagram. Or maybe you're on WhatsApp in a group with hundreds of people sending photos and pictures. So how we approach this challenge is through a combination of our caching nodes that sit in ISPs, as well as our peering presence, right? So we're present in Joburg right now. Why is that? For a few reasons. One, it's a very friendly regulatory environment. We can do business there. We're not a telco, we're not regulated as a telco. Very important. Also, there's a very mature ISP ecosystem. Everyone peers, everyone connects, makes sense. Finally, there's a large amount of traffic, right? We need that critical mass of traffic for it to make sense for us to invest in all the infrastructure to build our network all the way out there, put all the servers in, etc., right? So our other method, our ISP caches, they sit in ISP's network and they're dedicated for that provider to offload all the traffic. Since it's a smaller footprint, it won't do all the services as our peering pop. So your messenger voice call is going to be dedicated for the Facebook photo that everyone's looking at or the video that someone's posting that everyone wants to see within that ISP, within those users. So because of this, the offload is actually quite good because it's limited to that content that everyone in the network is looking at. So the downside is that it's challenging to have enough traffic to support this amount of offload. And so in Africa, there are only a few networks that apply. This is where we need your help as a community to come together with these shared caching models that Martin mentioned and we talked about yesterday. So with a few ISPs working together, we can build that ecosystem, get a Facebook cache that can help the community, and then as traffic grows, we can expand that program further. So what else did I miss? It's a good intro? Great. All right.
Good. Thank you very much for the intro. So we've heard from the CDNs. Now we want to have a look at this from the actual eyeballs, people who use it. So let's get an intro from Alain.
Good afternoon again. I don't have slides, but I will be trying to talk from experience. So my name is Alain, I'm coming from Rwanda ICT Association, and I will be telling you a little bit about Rwanda history. I will be narrating a history. So in 2004, the Rwanda Internet Exchange was established. 3 peers, it starts off very little amount of traffic, but with time it was growing slowly. I recall in Morocco the first AFPIF, I think it's the first AFPIF I've attended. This is when I met with Andrew, when at that time he was still working for Akamai, now he's with Facebook. And we started discussions. How can we have a CDN in Rwanda? We have a lot of traffic coming into the country, but we don't have a CDN. How can we have a CDN? I think a few months later, we had the first CDN. Prior to that, few months, I think few years before, Google Cache was in Rwanda. So Google, Akamai, and we started having as well repository, Ubuntu repository, and so on and so forth, because that was reducing the amount of traffic Rwanda needed from outside of the country. So back in the country, we started thinking, so
If we chase all the CDNs, okay, we can have them. Facebook will soon be in Rwanda, and we will have Cloudflare. Very good thing to have them on the exchange point or in your country, because it's your content, it's the country content on those CDNs, but it is still near the end user, which is a good thing. So we started reflecting on that. What can we do to put the inexistent content on a digital format? So we started discussions with our registrars. Apart from running the internet exchange, we run the Rwanda registry, the CCTLD of Rwanda. So we started discussion with our registrars, the one who are reselling our .rw. So what can we do? You guys, you are using GoDaddy, you are using HostGator, you are using this and that. Can't you have those website in the country? So they said it's expensive, we can't do that. So it's, from a business perspective, it makes sense. And technical support on HostGator somewhere in Europe or in US. So we discussed that with the regulator, and this is one of the things that I want to commend with our regulator. He's forward-looking, and he said, we can help. And then they said, okay, let's synergize our efforts. We are coordinating the project. We will need money to subsidize hosting packages in Rwanda, even if it is expensive, but let's start there. They said, we will be financing you from the Universal Access Fund. We said, okay, how long can you finance us? They said, we can do something around 4 years. Okay, we said, okay, 4 years, subsidize probably, in the first year, you will subsidize 95% of the cost of hosting in Rwanda, but over time, we're going to reduce that subsidy, and the fifth year, the registrars will be on their own. Are you okay with that? Yes, okay. But before that, we negotiated with the hosting provider to have some kind of discounted rates so that we can become somehow competitive with HostGator and GoDaddy. We submitted the project to the regulator. They said, okay, for the funds, we are going to kick out the project and move forward. So the experience in all that was, it took, I think, 2 years to build that and to have people synergize and have consensus about how we wanted to move forward. It will not reduce the fact that we will continue to work with CDNs as they are appearing on the market. We discuss, can we have a cache in Rwanda? But it will not be the main focus. It will always be something like 50-50. We will welcome CDNs in Rwanda. We will work to have CDNs in Rwanda. But we will make sure as well we have a web hosting content business sector in Rwanda as well. So that's mainly what we are trying to achieve. And so for that, we are coordinating the project. RURA is providing the finances from the Universal Access Fund. We are working with service provider data center. There are at least one career neutral data center who is willing to be part of the project. We are working with supporting organization, that's Dine Research and Internet Society. Dine Research help us understand, okay, since those websites are moving from HostGator or GoDaddy to Rwanda, what was the viewership? So we did some 6 months test, and then we saw that with time, I don't know if you know Rwanda, but there is a popular website called igihe.com, which is cnn.com, but in Rwanda. So when we did the test, we saw that some of those popular newspapers' viewership were going up when they had a mirror in Rwanda, which is a very good thing. So we're working with the supporting organization to help us know what is the impact of that. And we are working with the beneficiaries. The beneficiaries are the SMEs. We are going to focus on SMEs because we understand that they need to be online. If you are selling shoes, if you are selling honey, if you are selling anything manufactured in the country, in Rwanda, then your suppliers or your customers in China, in Malaysia needs to know what you are doing. So that's basically what we are trying to do developing the CDNs, continuously working with Facebook to have a cache in Rwanda, but as well digitizing the existing content which is not there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Alain. So now the platform is set. We also just want to continue on the introduction so that we totally understand what is caching and how does it work with the peering. I'm going to ask Andrew this question on, most ISPs cache. So how does it work? What information is on the cache? What information is on peering, and how do they work together?
Okay, good question. So for Facebook, all of our services are available through peering. So that could be video calling or WhatsApp calling, all of your Facebook feed, all of your Oculus downloads, any Instagram pictures. However, our cache is dedicated to static content right now, so we'll offload those heavy objects. And these complement each other. So if your Facebook cache is going under maintenance, then that traffic will be served from peering. And also, in order to fill the Facebook cache, it will be coming from one of our POP locations. So having the peering access will help to make that connection more reliable. So you can think of these two things as complementary to give you more capacity, more reliability when accessing our services.
Thank you. I don't know if anyone has ever been refused. It's a quick question. Why would someone be refused? I can take this.
Reason would be that it would lower the quality of our service. And if some traffic is actually going and are not willing to fix that, I think that's the only reason I've seen in the Netflix history of one. Otherwise, it is always a good idea. In particular, say no, if we have the common location.
Okay.
There are cases. There are cases where needs to be explained. Our content delivery network definitely focuses heavily on lower latency. So there are cases where a network will come from a long way away from a peering point, whether it be in Europe or in the US, where they're sitting on 50, 60, 80, 100 milliseconds of latency to go across one continent to another to hit a major peering point. And yet there may be a situation where our local transit actually has a much lower latency towards those set of eyeballs versus peering far, far away. And this does show up every now and again. And while both a content network and even an eyeball network should prefer peering over transit, there are in fact cases where the distance is so high, or the latency, because that is the function of distance, actually makes the sort of, I don't think you really want to peer there conversation start. But if that conversation can result in an understanding, maybe on both parties, of a that will improve the latency or improve it, not at an excessive cost, of course, then that will actually improve the internet as a whole and definitely improve the individual. But people are realizing that and taking that into account.
We've also noted that you guys, you have some POPs in some places. Now if we want to go in So we have a POP in South Africa. We have a POP. So I just want to see what challenges. Is it actually a challenge that you don't have a POP here, or what is it? Why is it that there is no POP here in West Africa?
I can start. Andrew can. Okay. I suspect our answers are going to be very similar. In our case, there are two main reasons. One main reason is that the business case just simply does not pull together right now. We do have one major difference into how we fill the servers, depending on whether it is a POP of our own and whether it is an ISP embedded server. In the case of our own POP, we do build transport network to that POP to make sure that we have a reliable fill of the server. And the pricing, even though we have learned this week that there's a good development going on both transport pricing and transit pricing, still, compared to what we need of that capacity to what we would gain by placing a POP in the country or in this region, simply does not add up. In particular, not when we already have the other strategy that we have, which is that our preferred way of delivering the content is to have our servers directly in the ISP's network. Then it adds up even less. I don't see a Netflix POP showing up in Western Africa in a very near future, but I do see that we will increase in the region, and maybe even some of the carriers in the region, about placing Netflix servers in the region, but not in the AS 2906.
Thanks. Andrew, I hope you can make the people here smile.
It's a good question. So we could think about this by looking at South Africa and why Facebook has a POP there. And I think there are a few main reasons. It starts with a friendly regulatory environment that enables the ecosystem to develop. And then, more critical than ever, is a really true carrier neutral facility that these networks can connect to. So you definitely need those two things to start with anything. You of course need the traffic levels, right? You need the mobile operators and ISPs to be offering services that are reasonable cost just to drive the traffic that would justify a content company to build a POP. And then finally, if we look at South Africa, we can even reach other countries nearby. So I don't think this exists in Western Africa yet, although it's getting better and better, right? So I do think, and I'm very optimistic that in the next few years that we'll start to see this develop.
Okay. Martin, your map of Africa wasn't that impressive either.
I cannot lie. I wish I had more dots on the map. The economics that Nina talked about are absolute. There's just, in other cases, the mechanics don't work. Andrew mentioned the need for carrier neutral sites, and that's important. But I'm going to throw even more complexity into this. Because we have banks, airlines, e-commerce of various variety on using our services, we also end up needing PCI or ISO 27001 type standards for data centers. So the physical, before we even talk about the network, the physical side has to have the appropriate physical security to handle this. I know this is not really unique to our network, but we're quite pedantic about this. We push for this in a heavy way, and this actually makes our deployments actually a little harder. I know this conversation has gone on in Rwanda, but in reality, we desperately want to put more dots on the map when the spreadsheet says that this makes sense. And I'll make a pitch. If you're a carrier and you own data centers in your local marketplace and want to bring content into the country or into the region, really try and understand what carrier neutral actually means. Understand the cost of cross connects, understand whether it's a single carrier or multiple carriers in your data center, and deal with the physical security, which of course most data centers are secure, but the banking industry is the one that throws these extra documents into play and says, no, what we really mean is the following things. And although a lot of this can be self-audited, the reality is it actually does take quite a bit of effort. And I commend the data centers that do have this, both in Africa and other places, because it's a major barrier for deployment.
Okay, thank you. We're going to open this to the floor in a few moments. But before we do that, I just want to know, guys, your expectations from a regulatory point of view, your expectations from the service providers or infrastructure required, and also from the data centers in terms of what you actually need to put, say, something in a region. Maybe Nina can talk about service providers.
Well, what we need, it's an interesting point, but actually what we need is what I also heard being talked about after Funke's presentation. What we need is better access and more access to more people in this region. Because without an increased demand for our service, we're not going to get there to that point where we will be easier for us to offload the traffic demand. So it's a little bit hen and egg. We need more traffic in order to help you deal with this more traffic that's already hurting you. But it's actually already getting there, but increasing the investment in the access, in the ability and lower the prices for the access so that everyone can afford an internet connection and can afford using it both for their education but also for their free time and entertainment. That will drive us, and then we can come in with the infrastructure that can support that usage.
And Andrew, so what's on your wish list in terms of your expectations for this to be a good environment for you to set up something?
Well, so I think that Funke from Main One put it best when she talked about the regulator to be friendly but not too involved. And sometimes I see that in some countries where there's too much of a heavy hand on that. So support but don't get in the way. How can you help the local community move fast and not get blocked on supporting upgrades? For example, I heard of 1IX, their switch is 1 gig switch and their capacity is full. They're waiting to upgrade that because of challenges with the government situation and their involvement. So things like this, where the community helps themselves, that makes it much easier for us to come in and work with everyone afterward.
Yeah. Jillian, you represent a lot of operators, service providers, because you're part of Internet Exchange. So what challenges do you face getting your content to your eyeballs that these guys can solve?
There are multiple levels of challenges. First of all, probably I will echo what was said about regulatory environment. Not too heavy, precise interventions, and I've seen that regulators need to be educated. So even though they may not understand, we need to keep the conversation going. This needs to be done, this needs to be done. I remember a few weeks ago, Nishal was in Rwanda and we had the opportunity to talk to the regulator, and then we had this wonderful discussion with the DG of regulator in Rwanda. We pinpoint the things that needs to be done. When you have few competition as far as metro fiber is concerned within Kigali or within any capital city of Africa, then that's a bottleneck and you're at the capital. So can you imagine the rural area, what will happen? So those precise interventions needs to be done from the regulator. And from our perspective in Rwanda, we took up that responsibility of maintaining that conversation going. So we took that discussion on a higher level, on East Africa level, I would say, where we discuss with the YACO, we discuss this needs to be done, this needs to be done. We need facilitation as far as cross-border is concerned. It's easy now to have fiber crossing Uganda to Kenya, Kenya to Tanzania, and so on and so forth, so that we wire that whole region easily. When we wire that region easily, I will not call Nina. She will just look at the statistics and say, I need to put a POP in East Africa. So in our region, come in our country, we need to have our infrastructure, our home in order first. We need to have metro diverse and with the best competition, the best prices possible. There is a TV station in Rwanda called Tele10. They wanted to push their content through the exchange point. I said, you can talk to MTN, you can talk to Liquid, you can talk to KTRN. And they discussed, but the price for Metro for 1 meg, or for a capacity of 100 megabit per second, I think it was moving between $30 and $40. So they were saying, I have to pay $3,000 per month to push my content. I said, yes. For how long before I get my money, monetize my content? Probably 6 or 12 months or 18 months. He said, we can't do that. So the other alternative was, okay, Tele10, can you put your content in a carrier-neutral data center? So the price there was more or less as well expensive. But it was, there are two options in our area. It's either cheap colo or cheap transport. So we're trying to look at how the regulator can help us in cheap transport and how they can influence cheap colo. Cheap colo means cheap energy. In our country, we, again, thanking the regulator, the price for data center electricity was discounted tremendously so that they can run and offer those packages I was talking about. So those are the precise interventions that we want to see on all those layers so that we can see our ecosystem, our region, attract CDNs in our country. So first, for me, it's have our house in order and structured, have good infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I need to stand up. Right, thank you very much, guys. Now I just want to open it up to the floor so that if you got any comments at all about the discussions here, or if you got any particular questions on CDNs, you can actually join the panel. Yes, Ben?
Yes, so my question is, those of you that are running networks that are pushing content, what challenges, or do you have, how do you deal with challenges that you might face in Africa with countries who with or without the legislation, feel they don't want certain parts of your content because of they feeling that they're not certified or got classified by some body or something, in terms of the regulation that's being imposed. And I see sort of quite a lot of this happening, and certain regulatory bodies saying they're banning 13 Reasons Why or something that Netflix is showing, or some blogger on Facebook. How do you deal with that? Is that something that you can deal with from a network point in terms of being selective in delivering content in countries, or what's your sort of policies, corporate policies on those kind of things?
You want to take that, Nina?
Andrew, do you want to start?
I don't know how much I can say because it's more of a product level discussion and policy team, and most of this is published on the website, so they have to do it in a standard way. So, sorry, I don't have more context.
I can talk a little bit generally about what we do in these cases. In general, we always comply with local law, but we are also an overseas service. So the local law we comply with is the local law where our headquarters are, and not necessarily because we're in overseas services on the internet. Whatever nationality the end user have is not necessarily anything we take into account when we look at whether some content is allowed or not. We're doing it, of course, with respect to the licenses we pay for, but we are not taking each country on the world into account. We do have very, very few. We do have these cases, but we have very few of them. So I think it is something that is manageable for us right now. And if someone is blocking or sending us you have to remove this from your service in this country, we look at it in each case, and our lawyers decide whether it is a valid demand or not. And then if it's valid, we do it. If it's not, we don't. So we have seen our service being blocked somewhere because we didn't comply to everything. We have also seen that we have taken down a show somewhere. But most of the time, we resist as much as we can because we feel that one of the things that our service do, other than entertain people, is also educate people in the different views that exist all over the world. So we do have shows, there are definitely shows on the service that personally I do not like and agree with. And at the same time, some of the shows that I love, there will be people around the world that do not like. And that's a good thing.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Yes, yeah. Please say your name and question.
Hi, my name is Khanza. I'm from Quantum Company, Sudan. Some CDNs refuse to do peering or establish a cache with one of ISPs. So for country like Sudan, it have a different challenge. It's affected by US sanctions, and I want to know what can you do regarding this issue. I had a conversation with people from Google and ISOC, and I just want to hear from you. Thank you.
Okay, so you've been reduced peering? Yes. Okay, Martin, you have to take this up.
I'm going to take this one. Yeah, governments. So they're actually, I've actually been doing some research on this one, specific to Sudan. It turns out in the US, if you're a US-based company, and well, 3 out of 4 of us are, you can actually apply to the State Department and the Department of Treasury and about every other department, it turns out, and asked for a waiver. And it looks like Sudan is the one country where, if you're willing to go through this effort, you could potentially get a waiver and do business directly in Sudan. I'll tell you now, we haven't decided whether we're going to do this or not. But, by the way, don't tweet this. This is no, I'm serious actually. This is quite advantageous. I know I'm being webcast, but I'll say it the right way. The internet, and this goes back to Ben's question, in a way the internet should not have borders. But you also have to sort of respect an individual sovereignty of a government within its own borders to do something that, yeah, you may not agree with or maybe different than your own country. Borders maybe exist in the physical world for various reasons. And so when it comes to the two parts of the question you asked, I think give it time. If it makes sense, we, the industry, will work out how to go through dealing with moving content into certain countries, or we will deal with interconnects. Now, I don't think we've refused anybody from Sudan as far as peering is concerned, but there are some interesting subtleties of peering that occur. So this week, Iran, the minister of ICT, tweeted his peering DB entry for basically the first Iranian AS number to show up in Frankfurt at DKIX. That path is available now and is actively being turned up with more peers. They've got a little bit of bandwidth issue. They'll fix that by Friday. And you will definitely see US entities with a trace route that contains nothing in between them, between an Iranian and a USAS number. Servers are your friend in this environment, because even if you think that actually works. And you'll see that all over the place. You'll see Bezek out of Israel with one hop into a Saudi network. And you sort of go, really? You go, yeah. Root servers work. So be creative. I hate to say be patient, because that's against my principles, but be patient. And there are people who would like not to see those borders and those rules exist. That's a long answer, I'm sorry.
All right. Very good answer. I hope so. All right. Any other comments or questions? Yes, sir. Then I'll come to you later.
Right. Ranjit from Mycolo, sorry.
Yes, fine.
The question's actually to Nina. So it's very interesting to see the difference between how you peer in a data center and in an ISP's network. In some of our sort of smaller African countries, or where the traffic is not as high, to share your caches sitting in a single ISP, or do you force that? And if not, why? Be good to know.
So might sound pretentious, but one of the things that I really like about our solution, and one of the principles we have when we do an embedded solution, is that we hand over the control of who can be served on the server in the ISP's network to the ISP. So the ISP decides. Basically, the way our CDN works is whatever is announced to a server can be served from it. If an IP address is not part of a prefix that is announced to a server, that server will not send traffic to that IP address. And it works the other way around as well. So the ISP decides which prefixes they announce on the BGP session to the server, and that way they decide who can get served from it. We have no say in that. It is part of the agreement that we do with the ISPs, is You control. We give you a server, it's yours to use, and you decide how you want to use it. So the answer is, yeah. If that is what works for that ISP, then they can do that. If we see those prefixes with a better route from some other server, that will be the one we use. Basically, they can go and they can look at the internet routing table, and that will basically also see that is our routing table. We basically steer using BGP, so it is easy to understand. Yes, very long answer.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah. This round of questions, maybe we take one.
Krasa, which means I'm the in the discussion, particularly concerning the regulators, what the regulators can do. But what I hear is, well, it's pleasing that we have more or less the same concerns as regulators. We are looking at things like access, affordable access to the internet. And we have gone into partnership with several institutions like the World Foundation. We have an MOU where we want to cooperate. It shows that we are really eager. But what I'm hearing, what I'm not hearing, which we are keen on, as regulators, there's this talk about such issues as infrastructure sharing. Do you really need to enforce it, or do you think it should just happen on its own as on a commercial terms? Because we are busy crafting regulations for infrastructure sectors. Because previously, I think telecom operators would only share their infrastructure with telecom operators.
Yeah.
So we are encouraging across sectors, water, utility, power. We are also talking of open access to infrastructure, because we realize most of the pricing is affected by a lot of things which are not transparent. We have asked the providers of infrastructure to say, okay, tell us how much it costs you to provide this service. Because generally it is felt that the pricing is in no way related to the actual costs incurred in providing the services. So we are working towards things like open access to infrastructure, that is regulations. We are looking towards things like cross-border regulations for cross-border interconnection, because we felt that, yes, I'm hearing here that there should be no borders for this traffic, but we are working for at least so that there is some terms of engagement, because now we are looking at IP interconnection, whereas previously it was TDM, with mobile and all those. Now it's IP interconnection. On what terms should these engage? Are we wasting our time in all these things? Because I'm not hearing things like net neutrality. Do you want it? Do you not want it? We are talking about it as regulators. Maybe we are just wasting our time on something that you guys are. Whether these things, what is your, because my purpose for coming here is to hear, and then I take it back to the regulators to say, this is what they are saying from the Africa Peering and Interconnection Forum. These are the issues. Let's see how we can resolve this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Before
can I quickly get in here and say this, sir? I really actually liked some of what you said, and I'm going to be jovial and then be serious. The jovial part is I've never met a regulator that removes regulations. Even when things become unregulated, they seem to generate more paperwork in that process. But I heard you probably say the most important thing for the few days that we are here at AFPIF, which is you came to AFPIF to find out what we collectively, everybody I presume you mean in the room, wants. And I'll give you a very simple example, because we have talked about this on stage, we various presenters. In Rwanda, I mean, you said so casually oh, we have connectivity over the border to Uganda. Well, I know you have connectivity to Burundi, goes down to Tanzania, goes through over to Kenya. These set of countries in the East Africa, just they share connectivity. We know that. We see that from the growth of the networks in those areas. And now, the conversations we've had about, to pit one against the other, West Africa, and say, well, no, there's no actual, we don't really have the connection over the border between Nigeria and a neighbor like Benin and other conversations. If you can fix that, nothing but good will come. It is. If you look at Europe, it's hard to tell where there's a border in the telecom area. Yet there are multiple currencies, even to this day. There are multiple languages. There are multiple everything. But data just flows, and it works very, very efficiently. The borders just are not seen. This isn't to take away from local governments having regulatory rules to do with their access or their mobile spectrum and the like. But the borders, if you can convince two regulators to remove themselves from stopping connectivity over a border, the internet just gets better and better. Way I will be happy with my time here, but I'll let others add to that, to the list of things you're...
Thanks, Tony, just to know, which countries are you, your organization, which countries do you represent?
Thank you. I represent the countries from, because there's, of course, Tanzania, which is in
on the east,
blocks, but from South Africa all the way to DRC, also from Mauritius to Angola.
Okay, the whole of Southern Africa.
Yeah, the whole of Southern Africa.
Okay.
Those are the sad.
Okay. Last comment or question before we close. Go ahead, Dylan.
Sorry. He said about infrastructure sharing, open access policy. Yes, please have them in those countries. If it is, I would not say impose them, but if it is possible that it is in place and people can take advantage of them, please do have them, and they help. And sometimes by experience, they can be there, but some providers would refuse some other capacities to others, saying we don't have any more ducts, we don't have any more strands, and so on and so forth. So not only put them in place, but as well have an eye on that so that it is actually implemented. Thank you.
Yeah, you may want to, just adding on to his point, some service providers would have made a massive investment. So if you ask to share, you have to come up with a proper algorithm so that they don't seem to lose out as well.
Yes.
Okay.
If I just add one little thing here,
sure.
Is that if we look at globally, we look at where does people have the cheapest and most efficient internet access, it is selling access to people. So whatever you want to do to secure that there will help.
Okay. So we need these guys. We need CDNs to make internet user experience a brilliant and worthwhile. So we have noted that obviously we want to remove, we want an enabling environment for this to work, and for all the CDN providers to come to your area. The regulatory environment has to be good. Okay, I'll add net neutrality. They need better access. They need good data centers, reliable power. Someone was talking about cheap colo, very cheap colo. Yes, all those cross-connect, those are unbelievable cross-connect charges. They need to go. Open access, cross-border interconnections. well, net neutrality, as you were saying. So this is all we need to make the CDN networks come to areas where we are, and also we need these guys to make the internet user experience brilliant. What remains now is for me to thank our panel for time for a tea break, and I will invite you to come up. Thank you very much.
Just before we jump to the coffee break, we've got some gifts to hand out. So got right, okay. All right, so we might as well start at the back. Alain. And Andrew. Martin.
Appreciate it.
Nina, come on down. Thanks a lot. And Mathew, one for you.
Thank you so much.
I didn't do anything.
Good effort. Thank you. All right. Thank you. And then, right, so with that, we've got a coffee break and then the peering bilaterals in the afternoon. And Machuki, do you have any news about... okay, so news about the gala dinner and other things are coming now. So.
Okay, so tonight is the gala dinner that the ARTC, the regulator, our host, is kindly offering. Departure for gala dinner is from here, from Azalai, and we depart at 6:30. Buses will be down just like yesterday evening, and we come back at 10:30 p.m. The dinner is going to be at a hotel called Eden Golf. So, yeah, we come back at 10:30, which is fine. Okay, thank you.
All right, so we might as well start at the back. Alain. And Andrew. Martin.
Appreciate it.
Nina, come on down. Thanks a lot. And Mathew, one for you.
Thank you so much.
I didn't do anything.
Good effort. Thank you. All right. Thank you. And then, right, so with that, we've got a coffee break and then the peering bilaterals in the afternoon. And Machuki, do you have any news about... okay, so news about the gala dinner and other things are coming now. So.
Okay, so tonight is the gala dinner that the ARTC, the regulator, our host, is kindly offering. Departure for gala dinner is from here, from Azalai, and we depart at 6:30. Buses will be down just like yesterday evening, and we come back at 10:30 p.m. The dinner is going to be at a hotel called Eden Golf. So, yeah, we come back at 10:30, which is fine. Okay, thank you.